Welcome back, students. Take your seats. Tonight's lesson concerns the fragility of the mind when placed under the immense pressure of isolation and the unknown. Our subject is not a haunted house in the traditional sense, but rather a place that is hungry, a location with a consciousness carved from ancient stone and timber. Our story is titled The Murmurs of Hearthstone, and it follows four young minds on the cusp of their future, unaware that they were about to stumble into a place with a past that was not yet finished. Let us begin. The air in the car was thick with the sweet, cloying smell of freedom. For Liam, Maya, Chloe, and Ben, the 4 years of university were a closed book, and Hearthstone Cottage was the first blank page of their new lives. A post-graduation victory lap, Ben had called it, securing the rental for a week, deep in the secluded embrace of the Tanglewood Forest. Liam stared out the window as the last vestiges of civilization, paved roads, cell signal, the comforting hum of the grid, fell away. The trees pressed in, ancient and monolithic, their branches knitting a canopy so dense it turned the late afternoon sun into a dim, watery twilight. "You weren't kidding about remote, Ben," Chloe said from the back, her usual bubbly tone flattened by the oppressive quiet. "That's the point," Ben retorted, gripping the steering wheel. "No distractions. Just us, a fireplace, and a week of doing absolutely nothing." The cottage emerged from the gloom suddenly. It was smaller than the picture suggested, built from dark, heavy timber and rough-hewn local stone. Its most prominent feature was a massive chimney stack, made from a patchwork of dark, almost black rocks that seemed to absorb the light around them. It looked less like a holiday home and more like something that had grown out of the forest floor. Inside, the air was cold and smelled of damp earth and wood smoke. At the heart of the main room was the source of the cottage's name, the Hearth. It was a cavernous fireplace, built from the same light-swallowing stone as the chimney. The stone was veined with faint, rust-colored lines, like old, dried blood. Liam felt a strange aversion to it, a prickling on his skin as if he'd stood too close to a source of static electricity. Maya, his girlfriend, noticed his hesitation. "You okay?" "You look like you've seen a ghost, just cold," he lied, forcing a smile. But the truth was, he'd felt something, a low, sub-audible hum that seemed to emanate directly from the hearthstone, a vibration that felt less like sound and more like a secret being whispered directly into the marrow of his bones. The first night was filled with forced cheer. They drank cheap wine, burned logs in the monstrous hearth, and spoke loudly of job prospects and future plans, their voices a fragile shield against the profound, listening silence of the woods outside. That night, Liam dreamed. He was standing in a forest, but the trees were not made of wood. They were the same black, veined stone as the hearth. The ground beneath his feet was soft, like packed ash. There was no wind, no sound, but he could feel a rhythmic pulsing from the earth. Then, a whisper slithered through the petrified woods, a dry, sibilant sound. It formed a word, a name he couldn't quite understand, but he knew with sickening certainty that it was coming from the cottage. He woke up shivering, the sheets damp with sweat, the phantom whisper still echoing in his ears. The next day, the strangeness began to bleed from his dreams into reality. He saw things in the corner of his eye, a fleeting, distorted shadow darting behind a doorway, a flicker of movement in the reflection of a dark window. When he mentioned it, the others brushed it off. "You're just tired, man," Ben said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Too much wine and not enough sleep." But the cottage was working on him. The geometry of the rooms felt unstable. A hallway he'd walked down a dozen times would suddenly feel longer, the door at the end seeming to retreat with every step he took. The patterns in the wood grain of the ceiling beams would writhe and twist when he wasn't looking directly at them, forming grotesque faces that would vanish the moment he tried to focus. And always, there was the hearth. He found himself staring at it for long stretches of time, mesmerized by the rust-colored veins in the stone. He started to believe they were changing, slowly reconfiguring themselves like a map of an unknown country. The low hum he'd felt on the first day was now a constant companion, a pressure behind his eyes. He tried to explain it to Maya. "It's the cottage. It's wrong. It feels like it's watching, like it's waiting for something." She held his hand, her expression a mixture of concern and pity. "Liam, it's just an old house. We're in the middle of nowhere. It's supposed to be spooky." His isolation was now complete. He was the only one who could see, the only one who could hear. The turning point came on the fourth night. He found a small, leather-bound journal tucked away in a dusty drawer, left by a previous tenant. The entries started normally, detailing hikes and peaceful evenings, but the tone quickly soured. "The dreams are getting worse, the stone trees, the whispers from the hearth." Liam's blood ran cold. "It wants to show me things behind the walls, things under the floor. It says the cottage is just the part you can see. A tooth breaking the gum line. The rest of it is below." The final entry was a frantic, barely legible scrawl. "I see them now even when I'm awake. The people made of smoke and wood. They walk the halls. They watch me from the corners. They are not ghosts. They are memories the house has, and the house is hungry for new ones." That night, a storm broke. Rain lashed against the windows, and the wind howled like a hungry animal. The power went out, plunging them into a suffocating darkness broken only by the frantic light of their phone flashlights. And that's when the others finally felt it. The cold was no longer just a draft. It was a physical presence, a weight that settled on their shoulders. A distinct, rhythmic scratching sound started from within the walls, seeming to come from all directions at once. "What was that?" Chloe whispered, her voice trembling. Ben, ever the rationalist, tried to laugh it off. "Rats, big ones." But Liam knew better. He walked slowly, as if in a trance, toward the great hearth. The hum was a roar in his mind now, a deafening chorus of whispers. In the dancing beams of their flashlights, the rust-colored veins in the stone seemed to glow, pulsing in time with the scratching in the walls. "Liam, get away from there!" Maya cried out. He placed his hand on the cold stone. The moment he did, the whispers flooded his mind, no longer a jumble but a clear, singular thought. A voice made of grinding stone and splintering wood. "Stay." He saw it all. He saw the countless others who had stayed in the cottage. He saw their faces contort in panic, their hopes and fears and memories being slowly absorbed by the stone, feeding the ancient, patient consciousness of the place. He saw their faint, smoky after images walking the halls, trapped as memories. He saw himself joining them, his face becoming another pattern in the wood grain, his voice another whisper from the hearth. He screamed, stumbling back, his mind fracturing under the weight of the vision. And in that moment of pure terror, the others saw it too. For a split second, illuminated by a flash of lightning, the room was filled with them. The faint, translucent figures of the house's memories, their faces pale, their eyes wide with a silent, eternal scream. Panic erupted. Raw, primal, animal panic. They didn't pack. They didn't think. They scrambled for the door, fumbling with the lock in the dark as the scratching from the walls grew to a deafening crescendo. They burst out into the storm, sprinting for the car, the feeling of 1,000 unseen eyes watching them from the dark windows of the cottage. They drove, not speaking, not even looking at each other until the sun rose, and the ancient trees of Tanglewood finally gave way to the familiar sight of a paved road. They never spoke of what happened at Hearthstone Cottage. The friendship, once a solid foundation, was now riddled with the cracks of a shared, unspoken trauma. They drifted apart, each haunted by the memory of what they had seen. But for Liam, it was worse. The cottage had shown him something and he couldn't unsee it. The hum never truly left him. Sometimes, late at night when the world is quiet, he can still hear it. A faint whisper from the stone foundations of his own home, from the concrete beneath the city streets. A dry, patient voice that sometimes, on the edge of sleep, still whispers a single, terrible invitation. Stay. The lesson here, students, is a chilling one. We build our homes on the earth, but we forget what the earth is made of. We forget the ancient, sleeping things that lie beneath our feet. Most of the time, they remain dormant. But sometimes, a house is built in just the right place, a place where the veil is thin, and it doesn't become haunted by ghosts. It simply wakes up, and like any living thing, it develops an appetite. That is all for tonight. Ponder this case, and be careful what you listen for in the silence of your own homes. Class dismissed.